Hello, my name is Ayana Washington, and I completed my book review on Critical Lessons What Our School Should Teach by Nell Noddings. Nell Noddings is a feminist and an educational philosopher, and her philosophy aligns with that of progressivism. I also included a brief biography, so if you want to pause the video and read at your leisure, you can, and included in the biography is just a little information about her upbringing and her educational journey. Learning and self-understanding. So these are 3 questions that I want you to think about throughout the video and then do a little self-reflection at the end. So in this chapter, Noddings does a good job in explaining how internal and external experiences affect the way that we think critically and make decisions. Additionally, she talks about how it's important for us to include critical discussions for our high school students that don't really coincide with those of what society want us to discuss. However, just things that they can relate to. And she gave a few topics such as studying and study habits, memorization, different motives behind doing whatever they do or whatever they would like to do in the future, and then their motivations. Nine is also distinguished motive and motivation, and a lot of people use those interchangeably. However, as I read throughout this chapter, I realized that they are very different. And your motive is gonna be the why. Why are you doing something? Why do you want to do something? You know, sometimes you have to ask yourself and self-reflect on that. Why are you doing what you're doing? Like I can think about why I'm doing this course or why I'm doing this program, and my motive is because I want to get better. I want to get better as an educator, as a leader, and, you know, just be able to teach my students with fidelity. And then we think about motivation as the what. So what are you doing to be self-fulfilling or to reach our ultimate goals? And my motivation would be basically me getting up every day and wanting to know more about this field because I'm a novice teacher. So I haven't been doing this as long as some others, but my motivation is the fact that I want to change the lives of students, and I want to be able to support them wholeheartedly and let them know that someone out there cares. The psychology of war. So in this chapter, Noddings writes about how internal and external conflicts, the internal and external conflicts that people may encounter when making a decision to go to the military, and how some people don't have to think critically about whether or not they want to join, whereas some people have to consider the values and belief when it comes to war. And she posed a question about does it make people, or does it make humans innately aggressive because they consider fighting for their country? Because when you think about it, it's almost like a good versus bad type thing. Like most people that join the war join because they want to help the country or defend the country. But then the downside is the destruction and deaths that are associated with, you know, wars and, you know, possibly joining the military. In my opinion, I think that, you know, it's whatever a person wants to do, because sometimes if you have considered what you think is morally right in your life, then it shouldn't be an issue, or it shouldn't affect how other people feel, and it shouldn't affect your decision to do what you feel is best for you. Advertising and propaganda. Okay, so in this chapter, we're going to talk about how advertising and propaganda overlaps, and the school's role in educating consumers, and how the pharmaceutical companies, the advertising for pharmaceutical companies have grown over the last decade. So advertising and propaganda do overlap because essentially we, as in the human race, can become so consumed with society or what society deem as great. So Noddings explains how pharmaceutical companies advertise these illicit drugs, stating that, you know, people will heal from a specific illness, or, you know, this specific medication you know, may assist your heart and pumping blood, and they fail to give consumers information on the side effects. So in that aspect of it, I feel like that in itself is what propaganda is. We're watching these advertisements and with hopes of doing something specific to maybe increase our life, or increase our ability to be physical, or whatever the case may be. But essentially these so one medication in particular, I know for a fact that my family members have taken, and it's supposed to help with their blood pressure. However, it can cause African Americans to swell up real bad. And with things like that, sometimes you have to consider the fact that, do you want to get healthier, or do you want to feel better and take medications that you really don't know what they're comprised of? Or would you like to find an alternative method, or do a little research to figure out what's going to work best for you? So what should be the school's role in educating consumers? Well, I think that schools should encourage students to think critically about decisions and do their research before making any decisions. So often, most of the decisions we make is not only because of advertisements, but because of word of mouth. If we know that someone did this specific thing and they had these great results, then we're going to do it. So as educators, it's important for us to encourage students to do their research and think about a decision before they just go out and make a decision. And why has the pharmaceutical advertising grown so rapidly? And should we believe what is being advertised? I feel like it's grown because right now it's like a pharmaceutical market. There's a pill, or there's some kind of medication for every single thing. And sometimes people consider that as a quick fix, rather than taking the time to research to see alternative ways of doing things. So do I believe what is advertised, or should we believe what's advertised? I don't think so. I think everyone should take their time to do a substantial amount of research on these medications, the different side effects, and also, think about time. There were actually times in history where their medications didn't exist. So there are more of natural remedies for everything. So I think people need to keep that in mind whenever they're making decisions, especially when it comes to pharmaceutical companies and your health. Making a living. Now let's talk about how educators are warned not to have low expectations of poor children, and also poses the question, why shouldn't poor kids expect to enter professions? So I think essentially we have to be realistic in our expectations of children, but we also should teach them how to think critically about what they want to do so that they can have and apply realistic expectations to their own life. People often expect to get a job or career in something that is interesting to them and that makes a lot of money, and not hinting at asking a bunch of kids, the type of careers that they're interested in as kids. And most of them say, I want to be a doctor, a lawyer, or if it's a kid that's, a kid athlete, they're going to say something about making it big, going to a professional sport, such as playing in the NFL or the NBA. So with that in mind, we have to encourage students to think realistically about what they want to do, and also give them the tools to explore these options. In the book, she talked about a guy who really didn't he wasn't successful academically, but he did get accepted into a community college where he ended up going through a policing program. And initially he liked the program. However, after a few months, he felt like it wasn't fulfilling him. And I think that's another thing we have to consider, that whatever we're teaching our students and encouraging them to do, it has to be fulfilling to them. And, even though we may feel like, okay, well, you're good in this, so maybe you should, lean towards career in that's not always the case. Furthermore, in that same, with that same guy in mind, it talked about how Initially when he became a police officer, he thought that everything that the police officers, his peers did, was ethical, and a lot of the things weren't ethical. So that's another thing. Sometimes you have to consider morale and whether or not that this career or this path is gonna there's gonna be some unethical situations that occur, and how would you handle those specific situations. Gender. Okay, all people in the community should be treated equally. I do agree. Everyone should be treated equally, no matter your economic status, no matter your gender, no matter your race. I just feel like everyone should be treated equally. And we all know that most career paths are male dominant. So it's just, that's just how it is, and that's mostly how it's always been. I do feel that education is a little different, because there are way more females in education, but then when you go past just regular teachers, most of the time the administration and the district leaders are male. Men make a substantial amount more money than women. Is that fair? We all know that it's not fair for men to make way more money and women doing the same exact thing. And sometimes you have to consider that in some of these professions, women are doing way more work than men and then are still getting paid way less than men. So I do think that everyone should be treated equally. I feel like, what are we teaching our kids? Are we teaching them that it's okay for a male and a female student to have the same interest in the same career, but being honest and open and letting them know, hey, you're a female, so I just want to let you know that you won't get paid more. In a society, as a society, we have to encourage equality amongst all people and all genders. Okay, preparing our school. So what do we do from here? Nelden said, first we need to prepare our teachers. And we say preparing teachers, we're not talking about just getting highly qualified teachers. We want teachers who are actually in the field doing the work, that are doing the research, that are actually taking the time to motivate and encourage these kids. And, it's less about the credentialing, but more about being an effective teacher and being able to meet the students where they are. Transforming the curriculum, basically providing real choices. A lot of the curriculum and the things that we teach our students, they're never going to use it. Most of the things that we teach, they're never going to use. So we need to provide a curriculum that is more based on how they are going to experience things within society. And then critical lessons, we should be able to teach self-knowledge, meaning first a student or a child should know about themselves, that their feelings and consideration should be taken into consideration when it comes to different lessons. They should be able to have those critical discussions on their level versus on things that may not even affect them. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you learned something about critical lessons. I think it was a good book. So thank you for listening.